At the height of the lunch rush, Post Street Cafe had reached the kind of peace only a sidewalk cafe can manage. Too many chairs, too many sandwiches, and several people pretending ordinary conversations were important. Then tires screamed somewhere down Post Street. A few customers looked up. One man froze with a sandwich halfway to his mouth. A woman squinted past the umbrellas. Nothing appeared. No crash, no sirens, no dramatic explosion. So everyone decided it was none of their business and went back to lunch. Exactly 1 minute later, a black 1978 Dodge Charger whipped off Harper Avenue like it had been thrown by an angry god. It swung right onto Post Street, fishtailed, and climbed the curb. For one terrible second, its wide black front end aimed straight at the cafe tables. Chairs scraped, drinks tipped. Customers stood in that useless, half-running way people do when their brain has not picked a direction for survival. The Charger bounced along the sidewalk, corrected at the last possible moment, dropped back into the street, and roared away like it had never meant to be there. Everyone stared after it. Then everyone stared at each other. The cafe manager pushed open the front door, having watched from inside, which he considered a management position and not cowardice. He raised both hands and said, "Everyone sit down. Enjoy your lunch. It's all over now." Unfortunately, it was not all over. A new sound rolled over the street. Not tires this time. A scream. A long, wind-torn, completely undignified scream from above. The manager frowned and looked up. A few customers were already staring into the sky. Nobody had time to explain before something slammed into the cafe's brick wall with a dull thump, a sharp crack, and a burst of white dust. A chunk of brick flew out and hit the manager across the nose. He dropped backward, clutching his face, while a man in a skin-tight red suit and black cape coughed in the rubble by the wall. The man was young, blond, and coated in white brick dust from head to boot. On his chest was a circular red, white, and black emblem, the same strange symbol shining on his belt buckle, a bold red mark like a cross with wing-like bars, outlined in black. He tried to stand on the broken bricks, slipped once, recovered badly, and looked at the body-shaped dent he had left in the building. For 1 second, he put his hands on his hips like a hero. Then his head dropped. He muttered, "Look at me now, Ma." When he saw the manager sitting there with a bloody nose, the heroic posture vanished. "Oh my goodness, I am so sorry. Are you okay?" he asked, rushing over and almost tripping on his cape. The manager nodded, mostly because nodding seemed easier than understanding any of this. He recoiled slightly from the dusty stranger kneeling in front of him. The man in red looked so guilty that, for a moment, several customers felt worse for him than for the man who had just been hit in the face by his own building. "There's no speed control, it seems," the blond man said, brushing dust off his cape. "It's either on or off, you know? I am so sorry." The manager nodded faster, waving one hand in a way that clearly meant, "Please stop helping me." The hero leaned closer. "I'd hate to bother you more than I already have. But did you see a black Dodge Charger come speeding by here?" A few customers snickered. The hero turned and gave them a bright, embarrassed smile, as if this were a planned public appearance and not a minor construction disaster. The manager lifted one trembling hand and pointed north down Post Street. "Thank you," the man in red said. Then he took 3 awkward running steps and leaped into the air. For half a second, the cafe gasped in awe. Then the awe was drowned out by his panicked screaming. He shot upward, arms flailing, cape snapping, body wobbling like a firework with regrets. He clipped a telephone pole, bounced off with a wooden thud, spun twice, somehow recovered, and continued north until he became a tiny red speck in the sky. The manager turned back to the customers. His nose was bleeding, his wall was dented, his patio was covered in brick dust, and not one sentence in his training manual applied. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Then, from Harper Avenue, another engine growled. A brown Ford Crown Victoria rounded the corner too fast, tires squealing, suspension leaning like it wanted to quit. It screeched to a stop in front of the cafe and rocked hard on its wheels. The manager sighed through the blood in his mouth and whispered, "What now?" The man inside the Crown Victoria studied the damaged wall, the bricks, the frightened customers, and the manager's ruined face. He was in his 40s or 50s, with graying hair, dark aviator sunglasses, a sports jacket, and the kind of calm that made normal people nervous. When he leaned toward the passenger window, the jacket shifted just enough for the manager to see a shoulder holster. The man pushed his sunglasses down and looked over the top of them. "Hey," he called, "did you see some kid in red pajamas come through here?" The manager froze. He looked at the holster. He looked at the dent in his wall. He looked at the sky where the screaming red dot had disappeared. He decided honesty was the safest policy. Without a word, he lifted one arm and pointed north. The man in the Crown Victoria pushed his sunglasses back into place. He put the car in gear. Before peeling away after the hero, he said 2 words, "Me neither."